Vaccines are dangerous and full of hidden side effects the government and big pharma don't want you to know about. You have seen the posts, the scary headlines, the viral videos. But how high is the real risk? And what's myth versus measurable fact? For decades, vaccines have been at the center of some of the most powerful urban legends in modern health. People whisper about autism, infertility, sudden deaths, secret ingredients, and long-term damage nobody can supposedly track. In a world where trust in institutions feels fragile, it is easy for any unexpected illness after a shot to become proof of a hidden danger. This is exactly why myth-busting around vaccine side effects is so important. Fear spreads faster than real science, and fear sticks. The myth sounds simple. Vaccines cause more harm than good, and the side effects are far more common and severe than we are told. Many believe that every time a new vaccine rolls out, we are all being used as test subjects. Stories of someone's cousin who was fine until they got that shot feel more real than any graph or data table. Here's where it gets interesting. Psychologically, human brains are wired to remember vivid stories, not dull statistics. If one dramatic story of a bad reaction goes viral, it can overpower millions of uneventful vaccinations where nothing went wrong. That is misunderstood science in action, not because people are stupid, but because the way risk actually works is deeply counterintuitive. So what do people point to as evidence? First, there are genuine side effects, and these are not a secret. Pain at the injection site, mild fever, fatigue, headache. These happen because the immune system is waking up and responding. Then there are rare allergic reactions, like anaphylaxis, which sound terrifying. Add in reports of blood clots, heart inflammation, or nerve problems after certain vaccines, and it becomes very easy to believe that the danger is much higher than it really is. The internet amplifies these fears by showing us the worst cases over and over outside any context. But this is the part most people never hear. Every serious side effect you have seen in a headline is tracked, measured, and compared against how often similar events happen in people who never got that vaccine at all. That is the only way to know if a vaccine truly increases the risk or if life's usual tragedies are just being blamed on the most recent shot. Imagine a city where thousands of people get vaccinated on the same day. Statistically, in any large group, some will have heart attacks, strokes, miscarriages, or sudden health crises within days or weeks, simply because that is how life and probability work. If someone had not been vaccinated, why those events would still have happened, but with vaccines in the mix, they suddenly look connected. Real science has to dig past coincidence, and that is where large-scale studies come in. Here's the twist almost everyone gets wrong. Vaccine safety is not decided by one study or one expert, but by layers of independent research across countries and decades. When researchers looked into the infamous claim that vaccines cause autism, they did not just do a single new experiment. They examined millions of children across multiple nations, using different methods, time periods, and doses. Over and over, they found the same result: no credible link. The original paper that sparked that myth was not just flawed, it was found to be fraudulent and was completely retracted. However, the meme lived on, becoming one of the most damaging pieces of misunderstood history in modern medicine. Now this is where researchers were stunned. When large studies looked at side effects like blood clots or heart inflammation with specific vaccines, they did find a small increase in risk in certain age groups. Governments did not hide this. They adjusted recommendations, changed age cutoffs, or switched preferred vaccine types. In other words, the system is designed to detect rare risks and respond. That is the opposite of the hidden conspiracy many expect. The risks were real, but they were precisely measured often in the range of a few cases per million doses, while the disease those vaccines prevented was causing far higher rates of hospitalization, long-term complications, and death. Here's where it gets interesting again. Risk from a medical intervention only makes sense when compared to the risk of doing nothing. For example, The chances of a serious allergic reaction to many common vaccines sit around 1 in a million. The risk of dying in a car crash in your lifetime is far higher than that. The risk of severe complications from diseases like measles, polio, or COVID before vaccines was orders of magnitude greater than the risk of side effects from the vaccines themselves. Yet because vaccines are given to healthy people, any harm, even extremely rare, feels more unjust. That emotional weight creates the perfect environment for debunking myths to become an uphill battle. People say, "But I know someone who got sick right after the shot. How can that be a coincidence?" The honest answer is unsettling but important. Vaccines do not exist in a vacuum. They meet bodies with their own hidden history and known conditions, genetic vulnerabilities, stress, other infections brewing in the background. Sometimes a vaccine visit is simply the moment when an underlying problem becomes visible. Real science, explained simply, has to separate timing from causation. And that takes big numbers and careful analysis, not gut feelings. At the midpoint of this story, here comes the twist that gives everything a second wind. Vaccines do cause side effects, and pretending otherwise destroys trust. What matters is scale and probability. The goal is not a world with zero risk, that world doesn't exist, but a world where the risk from disease is far lower because of tiny, tightly monitored risks from vaccines. When you hear 1 in a million, that is not a guess. It comes from surveillance systems where doctors, nurses, and patients can report possible side effects. These reports, even if unproven, are then analyzed for patterns. If a cluster appears more of a certain problem, then expected scientists go deep. This is myth-busting in real time, with systems you rarely see on the news because they are slow, careful, and not very dramatic. But this is the part most people never hear. Almost every medicine you have ever taken, painkillers, antibiotics, antidepressants, has higher rates of serious side effects than vaccines. Yet vaccines carry a unique burden because they are often given to children, to healthy people, and to huge populations all at once. That amplifies both the emotional stakes and the visibility of even the rarest problems. It is precisely because vaccines are held to such a high safety standard that they are among the most heavily studied tools in all of medicine. Now, this is where researchers were stunned yet again. When they compared vaccinated people to those who refused vaccines, they often found something counterintuitive. The vaccinated groups were not just protected against the specific disease. They sometimes had lower overall mortality from all causes. Why? Because people who engage with healthcare regularly tend to detect other problems earlier, get better treatment, and benefit from health systems in ways that go beyond one injection. That does not mean vaccines magically prevent everything. It means that the bigger picture of risk and safety is tangled up with behavior, access, and trust. Here's where it gets interesting one more time. Social media algorithms are designed to boost content that triggers strong emotions, fear, anger, outrage, calm. Data-driven educational video about vaccine safety will never spread as quickly as a shaky smartphone clip of someone crying, claiming their life was ruined by one shot with no context. Misunderstood science, amplified at scale, becomes a global urban legend. The hidden history of vaccine research is full of cautious testing, incremental improvements, and painful lessons when rare side effects did appear. But the public story is dominated by the loudest, scariest anecdotes. In the end, the surprising truth about vaccine side effects and how high the risk really is comes down to this. Vaccines are not risk-free, but the risks are extremely small, constantly monitored, and continuously weighed against the far higher dangers of the diseases they prevent. The myth that vaccines are secretly causing mass harm relies on ignoring the scale of data we already have and the mountains of science. Facts from decades of independent research around the world. The real danger today is not just measles, polio, or new viruses returning. It is losing trust in one of the most powerful tools humans have ever created to prevent suffering. When we zoom out and look at the numbers, the stories, and the misunderstood history together. The picture becomes clear. Vaccines have side effects, but overwhelmingly, they tilt the balance toward life, not harm. That is the quiet, powerful, and deeply human truth behind the noise. What myth should I break down next?